Mixed Media Music.
All right, welcome to Mixed Media Music. Today we will be talking about this piece I found on Reddit called Light of My World by Patrick Smith. And I hope Patrick is able to join us in the comments. If you're here, definitely, write something, let us know that you're here. If not, that's okay. We'll just go ahead and review this work. If you are new to our podcast, we have one review a week, and we tend to take things we find on Reddit or other parts of the internet, works from people who are sharing stuff there, and give our thoughts on them. So I found this piece on my usual spot for finding music for this segment, our composer. And this is a bit of a different piece for a lot of reasons than anything we've talked about so far. But I think it's definitely worth getting into and looking at it. So if I have permission to play the whole thing, I'd do that. So I don't know, Patrick, if you are in the chat and you'd like to say yes, we can play the whole thing. If not, then we can listen to, I don't know, maybe the first like two and a half minutes of it. I don't want to play the whole piece without permission. So give you a second, see if you're in the chat to respond. Then we'll just play about, I don't know, maybe we'll say two and a half minutes. We'll find, I'll trust your judgment, Irving, on a good spot to stop, since I don't have, the way this thing works is that I don't exactly have control or really much ability to even hear what is played with our current setup. So yeah, I'll leave that to your judgment.
All right. If it's too soft in the chat or something, if anyone's got a problem with the audio, just let me know. Here we go. Gracious part to stop, but I don't want to overplay too much of it. So there we are.
Okay, so let's start with what the composer said about this. So Patrick explained that he's a middle school band director, and that this piece is kind of inspired by a staple of the concert band literature, and that it is a piece composed for the birth of his first son or first child son. Um, okay, so that's a pretty dramatic inspiration for this. Pretty heavy stuff. Not like sad heavy, but obviously, but yeah. So we got some like kind of emotional weight to this. Of course, the most immediate thing, if you've been following these reviews, most immediate difference I would say between this and anything else we've done is that this is obviously written for a wind band, concert band, wind ensemble, whatever you want to call that. Not an orchestra, so no strings. And I would also say, so Patrick is asking in Reddit, for feedback and potential avenues for performance for this. And this is something which I think is largely like geared for a real ensemble to play this, and it is pretty much ready for performance. With maybe one or two things I would add, or not add, but some things I would think about maybe before putting it on someone's stand. Yeah, so in a lot of ways, this is, and I don't want to say like it's a particular kind of work that's written for a particular kind of ensemble, and it is quite mature in what it is doing. Really good handle on a lot of things. So I would say first, overall, it's just a very professional presentation, and I think you, Patrick, you know what you are doing from your work, actually, directing middle school bands. Although I'm not sure you're going to get too many middle schools to play this. High school, maybe some like community level, good community level band. I'm sure a lot of universities would also look at this. I will say that I personally, although mostly an orchestral fan, as a composer and a listener, but I've done actually much more of my performing with good reason. But most of my performing has actually been in wind ensembles of all sorts of calibers. So I'm quite familiar with the wind band world, and yeah. So first off, you give a really, like I said, it looks like you know what you're doing. It sounds like you know what you're doing in terms of a whole bunch of standards. So your score looks fantastic. The only thing I would mention about that is that you have the interesting choice of pairing contrabass clarinet and contrabassoon together, and your arrangement of layout of the instruments, which is still odd to me because you have bassoon way up high. Even though I know those two instruments are like pretty much doing the same thing in your score, I think it's more conventional to have at least in my experience, to have paired instruments, like same family, right? So bassoon and contrabassoon together. I think that might make it easier for a conductor to know what's going on. But that's the only thing I would say about layout and notation. You obviously know what standards are from having to conduct all the time. And I think, like I said, you could put this on someone's stand, and they'd play it and it would look very professional. You have a really great command, again, for good reason, because I'm sure it's what you're doing all day, but you have really good command of the wind ensemble idiom. Even though this might be a bit higher, technical level than what you probably do with your middle school students, you understand how wind ensembles work, and what kind of pairings are standard, what kinds of lines work, and that kind of thing. And that's so you have a very evident mastery of the wind ensemble idiom, which is a lot more than I see from composers I tend to find on Reddit. So, you're someone who's in definite command of what you're doing for your ensemble. And also, again, probably because you spend so much time, with real music, and also teaching kids to perform that kind of stuff, you have a really great sense of idiomatic writing for each instrument. I mean, there may be a few things. I didn't look through every note of every instrument, but I think in general, every line looks quite, we say, idiomatic, right? It's quite playable. It plays to the instrument's strengths and different parts of the register. And it just overall orchestrated very well, not just on the horizontal aspect of each instrument for itself, but balance of each instrument against each other, that sort of thing. There's some really small details in here. I'm not going to go through all of them, but some one detail that really stood out to me immediately, just in like the first thing about measure 4 in your score. It really shows me that you have a fantastic grasp on orchestration and exactly what you're doing. These small details that really enhance things, where we have all the woodwinds playing this kind of 16th note line in measure 3, and then measure 4, they all land on a whole note except for the piccolo, which has an 8th note. And to me, that's a really fantastic detail, kind of thing that I think a lot of young composers, especially a lot of people on our music or our composer can look at and learn from. I think you have a very clear understanding of, you have an idea of why you have the piccolo only play an 8th note there, just to kind of add that brilliance of an extra octave and then immediately cut it out instead of sustaining that. So you have you know what sound you want, how that sound is going to how it's going to work. So really brilliant little detail like that, and your piece is full of those things. I would say, overall, you have your two melodies, your two themes are, I think, very effective, and they play off of each other very nicely. You have, overall, it's a pretty pleasant, I would say, on the ear. There are some definite tensions and dissonances, but they are tastefully done so that they're not going to stand out, right? It's going to kind of add some color to what you're doing. I really love how you use your auxiliary instruments like, contrabass, clarinet, contrabassoon. They're not acting like, well, this is just another bassoon or another clarinet, or piccolo is not just another flute, which is something I see pretty frequently from young composers. They don't think about the fact that these auxiliary instruments exist separate. They're related to their primary instrument, but they have their own things that they can do well. Yeah, and I don't know. I think that you did a really nice job of capturing some of the expectation, joy. Not that I know what it's like to have my first child being born, but I imagine what I can imagine that feel like. I think you do a really nice job of capturing that. So, again, really overall a very mature, refined composition here, and it's pretty condensed too. We've got all this stuff going on in 4.5-ish minutes. So you are definitely in control of what you are doing. So there's a few questions I would have, or have for you. Some things that maybe you can think about to incorporate or not. My first question is: so you're calling for a pretty large wind ensemble here. You've got not only bassoon, which is probably not going to be present in a ton of schools, especially anything less than high school. Probably not in a lot of high schools either. We've got contrabassoon, and not only bass clarinet, which is standard, but contrabass clarinet. So a question I would ask is, do you think that the forces that you're calling for are going to make it harder for this piece to be performed, whether in an academic setting or in a, I guess, community band setting or professional wind ensemble setting? Professional wind ensemble wouldn't be an issue, but yeah, I would just consider that, maybe that may make it more difficult for these things to be performed, this piece to be performed. I would on the same line of thought, you obviously you have piccolo, but your auxiliary instruments tend to be on the lower end, right? Contrabass, clarinet, contrabassoon, and I'm just wondering, right? This is obviously pretty bright work. Whether that kind of darkness, heaviness in the low end is going to kind of cut down on some of the brightness that you're going for. It may not. I think that's also might depend on the players that you have playing it, but it's something to think about. Okay, maybe the biggest question I have is how many horn players do you intend to be playing this? You write horn 1 and horn 2, and it's not clear to me whether you want one horn player on horn 1 and one player on horn 2, so we have two French horns, or whether you want that to be like two mini sections. I think the way you write, at least to me, at least it suggests that you want one player on a part, and it looks like it's roughly that way for pretty much every instrument, one player on a part. Although obviously in an academic setting you would have more, but I would consider whether if you're only thinking one person on a part, whether two horns are really going to cut it. That wouldn't probably be to me in a more professional higher end ensemble. Normally you're going to have 4 horn parts and probably 4 horn players. If you're thinking of sections, multiple players on horn 1 and horn 2, then you don't have to think about that. But I would think that if you have one on a part, you may want to think about having 4 horns. And if you do only want, if you want sections, think about marking whether some lines should be solo or unison. With the horns in particular. Yeah, so those are like some questions I would have you think about. And a few other things that these are kind of matters of preference and style, but I think it's good to point out also for our audience. And I definitely urge you to go listen to this whole work. Support Patrick in any way you can. Listen to his look at his channel, and you can also. I would definitely look at this piece. Whether you want to write for wind ensemble or not, if you are a aspiring composer, there's a lot of really fantastic stuff going on here. But some things that stood out to me. So in general, you have a lot of imitation with what you're doing, kind of like theme A, and in part of the ensemble, theme A, the next measure in a different part of an ensemble, theme A again in the first part, theme A in the second group again. A lot of that kind of quasi-canonic imitation, and I think that adds a little bit of a sense of stasis in some places, and not in a bad sense, but it's not like this is not a piece that's about development of ideas. It's kind of like idea, and I'm going to keep repeating that idea, that sort of thing. So that's something to keep in mind if you're going to listen to this. It's not a piece where we're going to think about how we work out and develop ideas. For me, some of the transitions are really abrupt, and I think in some of the comments, some people mentioned this to you. You said that you like that, which is totally fine. If you like some of these abrupt transitions, stick with them. I would just point out that they feel abrupt to me, and you can like that or not like it. Personally, I've been thinking about this a lot recently with class I'm in, which is doing really, really in-depth analysis of some of Beethoven's string quartets. And Beethoven is the composer of really jarring contrasts and transitions. It's always a question for me. I know I mentioned this on, I think maybe the last review I did that, or one before that, where I think that making transitions sound organic is a big priority for me, and also a really challenging thing. But sometimes we don't have to be organic. So, if you like it the way it is, that's awesome. If you didn't intend them to be abrupt, some of them do feel abrupt to me. You have a lot of pairings of the woodwinds that you repeat. So that's again, you have a good sense of what those pairings are going to sound like. You have one really tricky one there where you have euphonium, clarinet, one, and piccolo. And I'm just going to say from experience that is going to be very hard to keep that in tune. It kind of is a little reminiscent of the end of the last movement of the Holst second suite. I'm sure you know what that is, what I'm referring to, where we have the tuba solo and the piccolo, tuba and piccolo not playing in unison, but kind of playing off of each other. And I played it many times. I just performed it, played piccolo solo on it at my last concert a little while ago. And that is, it's tricky with the intonation between low and high. But it's an interesting pairing, and if you're looking at wind orchestration, this is a good piece to kind of think, look at and think about what these kind of combinations would sound like. Yeah, two more things quickly. I think in some of these pairings though that you have, I don't know, my ears want some more, like a little bit more harmony, honestly, instead of just unison and octave lines. It's a matter of taste, but some of these, especially when we're doing kind of like I said, that quasi-canonic stuff, like theme in pairing, theme in another pairing, theme again. My ear kind of wants a little bit of like harmony between some of those pairings. So again, totally up to you, but my ear kind of wants that. And I really like this idea that you have. Let's see what measure. I think it's measure 18. You have these kind of running 16th notes between, we go through the ensemble, and it happens in one other spot. But to me, that's a really interesting idea. I would love to see a little bit more of that developed, instead of just those two measures. Again, personal preference, but I think that's a really interesting idea that could add some more dimension to what's going on melodically. And finally, the last thing I would say on the notation front, it's kind of a personal preference. You have a lot of strings of when you have a long series of notes that are all accented. On the page, it kind of looks a little cluttered from the conductor's perspective. If you have all of these accents right next to each other, I'm sure you know this, but I would consider doing a couple accents and saying sempre, right? Something or same, whatever simile, whatever language you want to use or indication, just everything after that is accented. I think might make it a little bit easier on the eye. Overall, really fantastic work. Like I said, it's pretty mature, condensed artistic statement of pretty deep thematic meaning, but so really great job. You have great control of what you are doing. I know this is, like I said, a little bit different than some of the stuff we normally talk about. You're writing from a different, totally different kind of world, both in terms of the ensemble you're writing for, and the kinds of performance opportunities you're looking for, than the other composers I think we've had on our show. But yeah, I think good to kind of have that little bit of a difference in what we're talking about. So really great job. Hopefully you get this performed.
Yeah, and to cap it off, producer wife Stephanie England Nestor says, really enjoyed hearing this piece, and it actually made sense when you mentioned his son was his inspiration. Definitely felt grand in a loving family-like way. I'm not a music person by any means, but for some reason it made me think of Disney's Fantasia, and some childhood memories came back. No idea why that association, but again, really enjoyed this. There we go. And I gotta say, I enjoyed it as well. Now, I have one question though. With the length, is that it sounds like it was 4 minutes at 4.5 minutes or something like that? Is that like a normal length for like a performance piece for like a community band or something like that?
I think it really varies. I think that's probably a good standard length, but when bands have, I don't want to say more diversity in the kinds of things that they do in their programming. but they tend to be a little bit more adventurous and do shorter things than orchestras do. So I think that's totally within the normal ballpark of normal lengths.
Yeah. Well, if you want to check out any of his stuff, the link to this piece is actually in the chat. It's also in the description down below. And then if you click that, his channel is there as well, and you can check out any of his other stuff. But if you do that, tell him that we sent you to him. That's what I meant to say. And we just let us know what you think if you see this as well later. Let us know what you think of this segment.
Yeah, and thanks again, Patrick, for letting us play and talk about your piece.
Look, tell a man no trouble. I don't want beef, man. I just want vibes. Big man like me, no need for the telephone hype. I got too much getting online. One rule, then I'm on site. Wrong move, I bet they gon' ride. No need for the telephone hype, nah. No need for the snoozing. Big whip outside, I'm cruising. Big stick inside, no losing. Better watch out for the snake and Judas is. Don't ask them who this is. I bet they know what I'm moving in. I bet I show it into a dim. How you hate and then lose again? How you hating my vibes? Why you wasting my time? Getting hype on my line. Tell a man I don't want feedback, I just want relax. Brand new whip, two-tone, I need that brand new hit. You know, like lean back, brand new bits. I live in we pack, man, you never gon' like us. Get them on sight now, let them on light. That way they know I'm all righteous. Look at my life, I'm living alright. I'm nice, you know I'm alright. Cause looking like Christ, no need for the hype or fight or telephone vipers. No need for the telephone vipers.